Round. बस हो गया हो गया हो गया हो गया For the valedictory session, ladies and gentlemen, may I request Ambassador Verma, Ambassador Sanjay Kumar Verma, he is chairman of RIS, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, Dr. Ashwini Mahajan, and Mrs. Meenakshi Lekhi to please come forward and let's welcome Commerce and Industries Minister Shri Piyush Goyal. You have stayed along with us all day. We had wonderful discussions on all aspects of IMAC. So we have with us Professor Sanjay Kumar Verma, Chairman RIS, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, Director General RIS, Dr. Ashwini Mahajan, he is member of Governing Council of CIEU, National Co-Convener Swadeshi Jagar Manch, Mrs. Meenakshi Lekhi, country's former External Affairs Minister and a part of CIEU's governing body, to give Honorable Minister the day-long proceedings, a small brief. May I request Professor Sachin Chaturvedi to give a repertoire. Sachin ji, briefly. Huh?
Thank you, Anilesh ji. It would be extremely brief. Honorable Minister, CIM, we had very good day-long conversation, almost of 9 hours, and 72 speakers, all different dimensions of IMAC we covered today. Most of the speakers had this idea of point that I think brilliant that we heard from Meenakshi ji in terms of it is not versus but pro everyone, and that was I think the point to emphasize on plurality, on connectivity, how India takes forward the time, and also in terms of India's own initiative through National Logistics Policy, Gati Shakti and Maitri, how all the three are providing the necessary issues for connectivity, corridors, and also in terms of we looking into the major challenges that we are having on volatility, complexity, issues related to geoeconomics, identifying clean energy, issues which are related to calibration, so customs harmonization, digital compatibility, and also trying to emphasize that it's not a transport corridor. It's a corridor for trade. It is a corridor for connecting education, skills. So we had Minister Mansukh Bhai whom emphasized on skills, on education-related initiatives, on standards and regulations, intellectual property rights. But we also had N.K. Singh ji who emphasized in terms of bringing in modalities of engagement on implementation and emphasizing on what kind of issues are needed for common standards on MRIs, and also trying to emphasize on greater access to capital. It is about private sector, how private sector participate. It is also about how we can create greater access to public goods. In what way we can create MDBs, which are with triple windows, so better, bolder, bigger. The role of the World Bank was discussed. more imaginative and more constructive private capital, blended finance to flow in, but also the role of UPI and the payments. So we had people from Germany and France, Italy, who emphasized in terms of how payment compatibility may come in, and also largely in terms of what are the issues that we can really look into. We also discussed possibility of forming a network of think tanks from the IMAC countries who can contribute and take the task forward. We have, Piyush, also decided to go for small voluntary groups that can contribute in terms of fixing up some of the SOPs, Ministry of Shipping with UAE, and under your leadership with UAE, the FTA was done. Your emphasis on identifying those trading partners where mutual respect is there. So this emphasis of yours was well appreciated in terms of how IMAC can really bring in countries who have mutual respect. So this was largely the sort of dimensions that have come in. We would put it together in a more coherent manner and would come back to you with full details. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chaturvedi. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with all your permission, may I request Honorable Minister to give his keynote remarks. So for you, ladies and gentlemen, we have man, Superman, powerhouse, rockstar, Piyush Goyal.
अनिलेश, आपसे ये उम्मीद नहीं थी. पॉलिटिशियंस को बिगाड़ने का काम कर रहे हैं अनिलेश. किसी और से हो भी नहीं सकती, इसी से हो सकती है. हम सबकी बहन and my very, very esteemed colleague Meenakshi Lekhi ji, Ambassador Sanjay Verma, with whom I had several engagements in different capacities over the last 10-11 years. Shri Mahajan ji, जिन्होंने जब मुझे पहली बार कहा कि IMEC का कार्यक्रम करना है, I was really not sure you are serious. I thought कि ठीक है, उत्साह से बोल रहे हैं, तो मैंने कहा जरूर करिए. I promise you. I had not imagined that you'll put it together so quickly. Compliments to you. And compliments to you, Sachin, for putting it all together. I just saw this entire day's engagement. And we talked about it barely 25 days ago, I think. Not more than a month, certainly. And compliments to RIS, compliments to the Council for International Economic Understanding, Dalberg. From what I can see, this must have been a very, very engaging day, covering a large cross-section of issues related to IMEC, also looking at how it can be funded, how it can play a role in international diplomacy, as Meenakshi ji rightly said, going beyond just a logistics or connectivity initiative. And I would believe that it gives us a good food for thought, whatever were the deliberations during the day, the different ideas that came up through 72 speakers, as we just heard him, Sachin, say, must have been quite a repository of knowledge and experience which has come to the fore. And I will certainly be looking forward to hearing more about the summary proceedings of the day and the outcomes or suggestions that today's deliberations would have produced. And I'd like to acknowledge that it's nice to see a cross-section of well-meaning policymakers and thinkers who would have engaged during the course of the day to try and put together a package of suggestions to make IMEC a reality. It's a very befitting topic in this age of turmoil. I remember I was sitting in my office doing some meetings and suddenly it starts flashing 245% tariffs now. Of course, since then till now, which is about last 6-7 hours, everybody is trying to demystify what really the tariff is. So nobody, I think, has a clue on what product, what is a tariff from which country. So it's really a situation where we are all struggling to cope up with changing times, changing dynamics. Within that, India's offering during our G20 presidency in 2023, proposing this connectivity and economic growth initiative across 3 continents, starting from India through the Middle East, all the way to East Europe, I think truly reflected a very forward-looking, very visionary concept, and something which has now caught the fancy and attention of the world, so much so that even during Prime Minister Modi's visit to the US in February 2025, they discussed about the IMEC initiative in the Indo-US joint statement. And if I may quote from there, it was decided to convene the partners from the IMEC and I2U2 group, that's Israel, India, United States and the UAE, both IMEC and I2U2 groups to be convened within the next 6 months in order to announce new initiatives in 2025. I think it's a very big endorsement that in this world of turbulence, United States and India and our leaders decided to take forward the IMEC initiative to its next level. And I do believe this, in a way, is an extension of India's global outreach, our own growing relevance in the world amongst world nations, our own leadership in shaping inclusive, future-ready trade infrastructure, which will help bring nations together, bring down logistics costs by as much as 30%, it is estimated, enhance our ability to trade and therefore enhance the volume of trade, the competitiveness of trade. And I do believe that initiatives like IMEC will not only reduce the time to transport goods significantly, that is also estimated to be about 40%, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So bring down transport time, bring down cost of logistics, and therefore make trade seamless across continents, faster, more efficient, and effectively lead to the prosperity of all the nations along this modern-day Silk Route, as some people choose to call it. I think it's rightly been suggested, as Sachinji was reporting, that this is a partnership of equals. It's not just about creating a corridor. It's creating partnerships. It's creating synergies in thinking. It's creating opportunities for different countries along the route, rich and developing, so that everybody can prosper. We will not only be linking trade, we will be linking civilizations, we'll be linking cultures, we'll be knitting together the Southeast Asian region, the Middle East corridor, the Middle East nations in the Gulf region, and the mid-European countries or Central European countries. So I think it truly revitalizes huge potential amongst countries along the route, and I think this can become a new global axis of the 21st century. It can provide a huge impetus to businesses along this corridor and also have an effect through to African continent, because through the Middle East, we'll be able to not only connect with Europe, but at a later stage also become an easier connectivity route all the way through to the African continent. This will include railways, this will include roadways, it will have pipelines for energy flow across the route. It could have pipelines for petrochemicals, for manufactured products which are in a liquefied form. It could have gas pipelines. It will also give an opportunity for energy to flow in terms of electricity grids, for example. You've all heard of the one nation, you've all heard of the one sun, one earth, one grid concept of Prime Minister Modi. I think I mentioned it in my last engagement also, which was with the ISA at the same venue. Do you get a special discount here?
We get all the money from
At the same venue, just barely a month or so ago, I talked about the effort, or rather the concept that Prime Minister Modi had visualized nearly 20 years ago or 18 years ago. One sun, one earth, one grid. And he was so much forward-looking in his ideas that he could visualize that the sun has so much energy that it could actually power the entire globe's needs through clean energy, which could be transported through a grid, interconnecting all the nations of the world, meeting their power needs at different points of time, through the sun, powering some part of the world or the other across 24 hours. So it was really a very, very visionary thought that he enunciated nearly 17, 18 years ago. And today, if one was to look at things, I don't believe it's beyond the realm of possibility. I won't be surprised, may not be in my lifetime, or let's say all of us on this stage, we may possibly not see this to fruition in our lifetime. But certainly some of the youngsters in the room that I see may actually enjoy remembering this day sometime in the future, that when they see this culminating into a reality. We've already been in dialogue with Singapore so that Singapore, India could look at an undersea cable for transmitting clean energy. I've had a conversation with Australia, and Singapore is also talking to Australia to see if Singapore-Australia leg could be connected. We are in dialogue with Saudi Arabia and UAE to see if this leg could be connected. So it's the seeds of the idea at the highest levels of our leaders and at the ministerial levels is already sown. We are already engaged in the initial thoughts being, let's say, the number crunching at the initial level been taken up. So you never know how far this could go. And IMEC can be a perfect starting point, taking it from India all the way through to Europe. Both the European nations, the Middle Eastern nations and India are countries which are very focused on sustainability, which are very conscious of our shared responsibility to bring sustainability in our energy meeting our energy requirements so that we can go for a safer world going forward. And that makes this IMEC corridor even more exciting, even more relevant for the needs of tomorrow. Digital connectivity with optic fiber can also be another very powerful connectivity that this corridor can provide. And we can go on and on. We can keep expanding that. For tourism, we can keep expanding that for movement of people, not necessarily only tourism, also for business or for work through mobility and migration. So it opens up a plethora of opportunities. And therefore, as the Prime Minister said, IMEC is going to be a big game changer, like the Silk Route. And therefore, any deliberations that you have come up with, any ideas, are truly very, very welcome. The good part of IMEC is that it respects the sovereignty of every nation. It's not trying to foist one idea on everybody. It's not trying to create an economic union. It's not trying to dominate any of the region. Something which the Belt and Road Initiative is now being recognized as becoming a political tool to try and dominate certain regions and their economic future. IMEC is proposed to be a partnership amongst all the nations in the route, respecting each other's sovereignty, our territorial integrity, and also focusing largely on promoting inclusive growth, sustainable growth amongst all these nations, fostering friendships, not an adversarial kind of money is not the only driver. While we will look at financial viability, we are not trying to create a behemoth which is financially unviable. So financial viability will be an important element of IMEC. We don't want to create a huge debt burden on all the countries along the route. But the larger objective is amongst friends. The larger objective is to promote amity amongst nations. And towards that, I'd like to make 5 suggestions as the way forward. Some of it may also delve into whatever you have discussed during the course of the day. If I'm repetitive, then pardon me, because I don't know exactly what's been a part of your discussions. But my own humble offering, in the few minutes that I have left before my time is up, I'd like to suggest 5 elements that we could possibly crunch a little further on, deliberate further on, and come up with some concrete suggestions. One, I think this should be seen with the lens of a public-private partnership, so that it's cost-effective and it's implemented smartly and efficiently. Let's not leave it only to be a government initiative. Let the private sector drive this initiative. That way we'll be able to ensure its financial viability also, and let the government partner with the private sector. One other advantage this could see is that this opportunity will be planned better, because private sector will be able to actually bring to the table what they really want, rather than the government foisting on them what we think they want. The private sector is competent to also innovate with more cost-effective solutions. So very often we in government or policymakers think in a linear fashion. The private sector will be able to add angularities and innovation in planning this corridor or planning the whole project. So I think also they may be able to add some more innovative ideas. For example, I remember when we were first looking at connecting Kedarnath with railway connectivity and road connectivity, I still remember the humongous cost that was coming up for providing a railway all the way up to Kedarnath. And it had its own ecological issues, environmental issues. Cost was just incalculable, but we had a commitment. We wanted to take the pilgrim all the way up to Kedarnath. But as you get closer and closer, the cost was in multiples, because in the mountains, the tunnels were long. Traversing one mountain range to the other, you really had to go round, and having reached the peak, go back down and go up another range of mountains, as you see in the mountains. But when we dovetailed the ropeway along with the railway network, it suddenly looked so much more feasible, so much more efficient, so much faster. And we'll be able to take the pilgrims to Kedarnath in large numbers, in a cost-effective solution. And you might have seen the Prime Minister has recently approved the ropeway connectivity at the last mile to take our pilgrims to Kedarnath. So I think we need our private sector and our innovators to come up with some newer thoughts and newer ideas on how the IMEC corridor can be both practical in its utility and cost-effective in its implementation. Number two, we need to certainly look at beyond the infrastructure that we are creating. Can we look at regulatory forbearance or regulatory connectivity also? Can we try and bring together some more alignment on process, procedures, trade practices, customs union or custom paperwork? Also within nations, for example, UAE and we are already engaged to bring some alignment in our regulatory practices. If this region has to really be successful, we can't have border checkpoints at every level. So we'll have to look at regulatory connectivity also. So procedures, processes, regulators, our customs, all will have to be aligned to make this corridor a bigger success. And whether we could have interoperable norms, because ultimately we'll need one railway system. You can't have standard at some place and broad gauge at another and narrow gauge at a third. So we'll have to have more interoperable systems. Going forward, if we have highways, then we'll have to have some interoperable charging infrastructure across the highways. If we are promoting electric mobility in a big way. So we'll have to think through all of these possibilities and bring nations together. This will ultimately add to scale, because let's say if we bring our charging ecosystem and we align them, then the economies of scale will start kicking in, thereby promoting electric mobility. So we'll have to look at a multifaceted dimension that this project offers. Digitization could be another area, for example, like UPI. We could have common payment systems, enabling money flow to be easier and could be settled periodically, monthly or quarterly in the reserve currency of the globe or in dollars. But on a day-to-day basis, every transaction will not need to go through several iterations, only making the banks richer and adding to the cost of transport or cost of trade. Similarly, India and the UAE have been in a dialogue for a virtual trade corridor. Can we extend that through the IMEC corridor? Whether that could become, going forward, like a trade corridor, and with India already engaged with the EU at advanced stage for an FTA. We are already having an FTA with UAE and the possibility of other GCC countries entering into an FTA increasing. I think we've launched one more. Did we launch the Bahrain FTA recently? I'm losing track because Oman is already under discussion and we have a couple of more which are in the offing. So right now the train is working on so many tracks that every second meeting I have to refocus on where we are. So we will be expanding our trading relations with countries where we get a fair deal, where we can have equitable and balanced free trade agreements, where India's gains commensurate with what we are offering, a large market of 1.4 billion people, a growing market, the world's fastest growing economy. So with all these trade agreements that we are entering into, with the synergies that we have with different countries, let's say in projects of renewable energy or green hydrogen, the way we are working with many countries in partnership, I think this corridor can help to bridge various other initiatives also, bring us closer to these nations. Third, I think this will also open up for the financial world new opportunities. We could have multilateral financing agencies along this corridor to help promote both the setting up of the corridor and at some stage promoting trade through this corridor. We should explore innovative financing models and see how this could finally be financed. For example, we had green bonds in the past. We could have some IMEC infrastructure bonds, long-term 50-year, 100-year bonds to finance this kind of an infrastructure. Fourth, we should involve industry and the trade associations so that we can actually understand what really business wants, what industry associations who represent trade and business are desirous as outcomes of the IMEC corridor. This will help us to promote best practices. It will help us to promote, it will help us to identify bottlenecks that industry is facing so we can couple our economies better and remove the bottlenecks that businesses are suffering from. And lastly, since I am at a think tank event, I think we should get the think tanks and the academics in this region also involved, because they, in some sense, are the dreamers. They are the visionaries who come up with out-of-the-box ideas. So I think engagement between the think tanks in this region will help us in policy advocacy, will help the academia bring research to the table, researching this project as well as associated what more we can do to expand this project and the contours of this project. Think tanks and academia can also help us in capacity building along this corridor. So it can be a very nice package that can be built up, and these 5 initiatives or suggestions could help us wrap up a viable long-term project so that by the time the Prime Minister convenes the meeting, the next meeting for IMEC initiative, maybe we can flesh out some of these ideas, take it to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and help them in their own work preparing for the next meeting of all the stakeholders. Friends, India's vision is absolutely clear, crystal clear. We want to serve as a reliable, a trusted bridge between these countries in this region. We will play the role of a catalyst. Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam has been India's ethos for centuries now. The G20 reflected our vision of the world being one family. We are a trusted partner that supports inclusive growth across the world, that supports efforts towards a sustainable world. And I think the IMEC initiative will not only benefit India, but will benefit the entire world going forward. Thank you very much for your patience and for this opportunity. Time's up, as the screen says. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, I rarely use adjectives for politicians, but you have just proven me right by giving such a great, insightful remarks, and you own your subjects like a pro. So that's why I use the adjective rockstar minister, and we really appreciate. And your mantra given to many of us, 10 years back, that skill, speed, and the scale. So Ashwini ji is following that inspiration. So that's why, this IMEC conclave came up in 25 days. So thank you very much. And now may I request Professor Dash to come forward and propose a vote of thanks, please. You don't want to come? Come. So, sir, he is the brain behind the conclave. He designed and executed along with the Talbot team.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving us the direction to work. As you rightly said, I'm building on that the academia and the think tanks would play the role of capacity building. So under the dynamic leadership of our Chairman, Ambassador Sanjay Kumar Verma and Director General Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, RIS has made efforts in the past few months to energize the track 2 and track 1.5 process for IMEC. Because there are a lot of apprehension in the media that it is a competing initiative to BRI and all these things. So we try to demystify those apprehensions, produce feasibility studies, publications and platforms to sort of generate meaningful policy inputs, possibly addressing those apprehensions and promote better understanding on IMEC and corridors in general. Our workshop in Italy and then subsequently on March 19th with other collaborators, one more follow-up conference and this conclave at this scale, we have developed our own understanding on the subject, which we'll build on based on your direction today. And we had Honorable Minister of Labour, Mansukh Mandavia ji, and then we have Minister of Shipping, Sarbananda Sonowal ji. They have given us a rich inventory of ideas. So we have a work ahead for next 2 years, if I say so, for the research teams. So we used to thank all those who, besides the honorable ministers, the top officials, the multilateral development banks, ambassadors of Greece, then diplomatic representatives of Israel, France. So they have given their perspectives of Europe. So on behalf of RIS and CIU and Dalberg, so thank you all, the audience, for coming in good numbers and staying the whole day and contributing to this intense discussion that has happened. It has further encouraged us to work hard and fulfill the wish that the Honorable Minister has said before us. So I wish to thank all the RIS administration, RIS IT, social media, Dalberg, CIU administration, their set of IT and all other supporting setup for helping us building this conclave. Thank you so much.
So, sir, thank you very much. There is a Angavastram which RIS has brought in. Professor. Piyush bhai, there is a and so there's a self-help group in Madhya Pradesh which has created the painting. हाँ.
At least you made me look younger. Thank you very much. ये मैं पहले रखता था। With chalk, with charcoal or pencil? Charcoal.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much that you have taken your time out. The dinner is served next door, so you are most welcome there. So now they'll be removing the curtain. You can easily access the adjoining room.